Commander Thelvan stood on the bridge of the endless horizon and stared at the view screen. 37 ships floated in the darkness of space, all of them damaged and powerless. His fleet was dying, and there was nothing he could do about it. The jump through space had gone wrong. Terribly wrong. The quantum drives that powered their ships through the stars had failed all at once. Something in this empty region of space had broken them. Now 50,000 Velthari were trapped far from home with no way to call for help that could arrive in time. Thelvan's second officer, Rendal, approached him with a data tablet. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed worry. "Commander, I have finished the calculations," she said quietly. "Tell me," Thelvan replied, though he already knew the news would be bad. "Life support is failing on 14 ships. The smallest vessels will lose oxygen in 12 days. The larger ships have perhaps 3 weeks. Rendal paused. "Our food synthesizers are offline. We have emergency rations, but not enough. Not for this many people." Thelvan closed his eyes. 50,000 souls, families, children, all depending on him to save them. And the distress signal? Broadcasting continuously for 5 days now. No response. Rendal looked at her commander. "Sir, even if our people received the signal today, they could not reach us in time. We are too far from Velthari space." The bridge was silent. Everyone knew what this meant. They would die here in this empty system with no one to help them. The Velthari were a proud species, known across the galaxy for their military strength and advanced technology, but none of that mattered now. "What about the colonies?" Thelvan asked. "The outposts?" Rendal shook her head. "All too far. The nearest Velthari settlement is 18 days away at maximum speed. We do not have that much time." A young engineer named Kasrim spoke up from his station. "Commander, what about other species? We have detected scout ships from several civilizations in nearby systems." Thelvan turned to look at him. The young officer seemed hopeful, but Thelvan felt only doubt. "Other species? Most of them are barely capable of space travel. What could they do that we cannot?" "With respect, sir, we need supplies. We need help. Any help." Kasrim's voice was steady but urgent. "We have civilians aboard, children." Thelvan wanted to argue, but he knew the engineer was right. Pride would not save them. Still, the idea of asking lesser species for help burned in his chest. The Velthari had built an empire on strength and superiority. "They did not beg. Send the signal," Thelvan said finally. "Broadcast on all frequencies. Let anyone who can hear know that we need assistance." Across the fleet, people struggled to survive. On the colony ship New Dawn, families huddled together to stay warm as the heating systems failed. Parents held their children and told them stories to keep their minds off the cold and hunger. On the medical frigate Healing Light, doctors worked without rest to treat the injured. Hundreds had been hurt when the quantum drives failed. The sudden stop had thrown people across rooms, broken bones, and caused internal injuries. Medical supplies were running low. Dr. Morvan, the chief medical officer, made impossible choices about who to treat first. In the cargo holds of various ships, officers counted and recounted the food supplies. They reduced rations once, then twice. People were hungry, but complaining seemed pointless. Everyone knew the situation was desperate. On the military cruiser Steel Talon, weapons officer Drenka watched the empty space around them. She was young for her position, barely into her adult years. Her duty was to protect the fleet from threats, but there was nothing to fight here. The enemy was physics itself, and she had no weapon against it. Meanwhile, in a different part of the galaxy, the human exploration ship Caisse de Jean moved through space on a routine survey mission. Captain Jiwan sat in her command chair, reviewing reports from her crew. It was supposed to be a quiet month, scanning distant systems for resources and mapping new space lanes. "Captain," Communications Officer Sunhee called out suddenly, "I'm picking up a distress signal. It's strong and broadcasting on multiple frequencies." Jiwan sat up straight. "Can you translate it?" Sunny worked at her console for a moment. "It's using mathematical patterns. Universal language protocols. Someone is in serious trouble." She paused, listening through her headset. "Captain, it's a fleet. Multiple ships. They say their drives are dead and they're running out of life support." Engineer Hyun looked up from his station. "Can we identify the species?" "Running the signal through our database now," Sunhee replied. Her screen flickered with data. "Match found. Velthari. Military insignia detected. Captain, this is a major fleet, not just one ship." Navigator Minho quickly calculated distances. We can reach their position in 18 hours if we push the engines. Jiwan thought carefully. The Velthari were known to humans, though contact between the species had been limited. From what Earth knew, the Velthari were powerful and somewhat arrogant. They rarely spoke to younger species like humanity. Some human commanders might have hesitated, wondering if help would even be welcome. But Jiwan had not become a captain by overthinking simple choices. People were dying. That was all that mattered. Minho set course for the distress signal. Maximum speed. Jiwan pressed the ship-wide intercom. All hands, this is the captain. We have detected a fleet in distress. We will be rendering aid. All departments prepare for emergency relief operations. Hyun stood up. Captain, should we call for backup? If it's a whole fleet, we might need more ships. Send a message to Earth Command, Jiwan agreed. But we're not waiting. Every hour counts when life support is failing. The Kestijon turned in space and began accelerating toward the stranded Velthari fleet. In the crew quarters, Medical Officer Yuna began organizing medical supplies. In engineering, Hyun and his team reviewed everything they knew about alien life support systems. Everyone worked with purpose. On the bridge, Jiwan looked at the star field ahead. Somewhere out there, thousands of people were waiting for help that might never come. They didn't know that a small human ship was racing toward them. They didn't know that someone had heard their call, but they would know soon. The Kes Dijon flew through the darkness, a single point of light carrying hope to the desperate. Behind it, automated systems sent messages back to human space, calling for more ships, more supplies, more help. The bureaucrats and politicians would debate and discuss, but Captain Jiwan and her crew were already moving. Because that's what humans did. When someone called for help, they answered. It didn't matter if the ones in trouble were friends or strangers, advanced or primitive, grateful or proud. Someone needed help. That was enough. Commander Thelvan stood on his dying bridge and watched the stars, not knowing that his prayers had been heard. Not knowing that help was coming from an unexpected source. Not knowing that everything he believed about the universe was about to change. The countdown continued. Time was running out, but in the vast emptiness of space, a small human ship pushed its engines to the limit, racing against death itself. The Kestajon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Velthari fleet's position. Captain Jiwan immediately saw the scope of the disaster. Dozens of ships drifted without power, their running lights dim or dark. Some vessels showed visible damage with hull breaches sealed by emergency force fields. My God, Sunhee whispered from her station. There are so many of them. Jiwan kept her voice steady. Sunhee, open a channel. Use the mathematical language protocols. Let them know we're here to help. Sunhee's fingers moved across her console. She transmitted a simple message in pure mathematical sequences. The universal language that any spacefaring species could understand. We are friends. We received your distress call. We offer assistance. Please respond. On the bridge of the endless horizon, alarms suddenly blared. A sensor officer called out, Commander! Unknown vessel approaching from Galactic West. Small ship single drive signature. Thelvan spun around. Unknown? Battle stations! Sir, they're transmitting, the communications officer said. Mathematical protocols. They say they're here to help. Rendall checked her console quickly. Ship identification complete. It's human. A survey vessel from Earth's exploration fleet. Human. Thelvan felt a mix of emotions. Relief that someone had arrived. Shame that it was such a primitive species. Suspicion about their motives. One ship? What can one ship do? Commander, they're waiting for a response, the communications officer said. Thelvan's pride wanted to refuse them, to tell them the Velthari did not need help from lesser beings. But he thought of the children in the colony ships, the injured in the medical frigates. The fear in everyone's eyes. Respond, he said quietly. Tell them we accept their offer. Aboard the Daejeon, Ji-won received the reply. They've agreed to let us approach, Captain. But their weapon systems are still active and tracking us. Understandable, Ji-won replied. They don't know us. Minho, take us in slowly. Nice and easy. No sudden moves. The human ship glided carefully toward the Velthari flagship. As they got closer, the crew could see the extent of the damage. Scorch marks covered hulls. Some ships listed at strange angles. A few showed signs of internal fires that had been barely contained. Captain, Yuna said from medical. Request permission to scan their ships for casualties. Granted. Sunhee asked them if they'll allow medical scans. The request went out. After a brief pause, permission came back. Yuna's instruments swept across the fleet and her face grew pale. Captain, I'm reading over 3,000 injured. Some critical. Their medical systems are overwhelmed. Jiwan made a decision. Sunhee, tell them we're sending over our medical officer and medical supplies. Telvan stared at the message. They want to send medical aid? Already? They have a medical officer requesting permission to board and treat our wounded. Rendal confirmed. We don't even know them, Telvan said. Why would they help? Kasrim, the young engineer, spoke up again. Does it matter? We need the help. Telvan knew he was right, but it felt wrong to accept charity from humans. Still, his people were suffering. Tell them yes, but only their medical officer, and she will be escorted at all times. Yuna gathered her equipment and prepared to transport across to the Velthari flagship. Before she left, Jiwan gave her a simple order. Help them. Don't worry about protocols or politics. Just save lives. Yes, Captain, Yuna replied with a small smile. The transport beam sent Yuna across to the endless horizon. She materialized in their docking bay, surrounded by tall Velthari soldiers who pointed weapons at her. Yuna raised her hands slowly, showing her medical bag. I'm Dr. Yuna. I'm here to help your wounded. One of the soldiers escorted her to the medical bay. When the doors opened, Yuna saw the nightmare inside. Injured Velthari lay on every available surface. Medical staff rushed between patients, trying to help everyone at once. The smell of blood and fear filled the air. Dr. Morvan, the elderly chief medical officer, looked up as Yuna entered. His face showed exhaustion and desperation. You're the human doctor? Yes, where do you need me? Morvan pointed to a section of the bay where the most critical patients lay. There. I don't have enough supplies to treat them all. I've been choosing who lives and who dies. I hate it. Yuna set down her bag and started pulling out human medical equipment. You won't have to choose anymore. Let me help. For the next several hours, Yuna worked alongside Velthari doctors. The medical techniques were different, but anatomy was anatomy. She adapted quickly, using human medicines, where they were compatible and learning to use Velthari tools when they weren't. Morvan watched in amazement as this small human moved from patient to patient with skill and compassion. Meanwhile, Hyun received permission to examine the damaged quantum drives. He transported to the engineering deck of the Endless Horizon with his portable diagnostic equipment. The Velthari engineers watched him suspiciously at first, but Kasrim volunteered to work with him. Your technology is different from ours, Kasrim admitted as they looked at the massive drive cores. Different doesn't mean useless, Hyun replied with a grin. He ran his scanners over the drives. Oh, this is bad. Whatever happened here completely destabilized your quantum matrices. Can you fix it? Me? No, this is way beyond human technology. But maybe we can stabilize it enough to keep things from getting worse. Hyun started pulling tools from his kit. Let's start by rerouting power away from the damaged sections. Kasrim helped, impressed by how quickly Hyun understood the alien systems. They worked together, combining Velthari knowledge with human improvisation. Back on the Daejeon, Jiwan contacted Earth Command. This is Captain Jiwan reporting. We've found the Velthari fleet. The situation is critical. They need immediate assistance. Food, medical supplies, engineering support, and temporary power generators, requesting full relief convoy. The response came back within minutes. Relief convoy approved. Assembling ships now. ET 72 hours. Continue rendering aid, Jiwan smiled. Earth might be far from the Veltharian technology, but when it came to helping others, humanity moved fast. She called her crew together. Listen up. We have 3 days until the convoy arrives. These people will die before then unless we act now. I need all non-essential personnel to start preparing care packages. Food, water, medical supplies, anything we can spare. Captain, Supply Officer Heian said carefully, if we give away our supplies, we won't have enough for ourselves. Then we'll ration, Jiwan said firmly. We can go hungry for a few days. Those families out there can't wait. The crew moved into action. They gathered food supplies, medical equipment, spare parts, and anything else that might help. No one complained about giving up their own resources. This was what they'd signed up for when they joined the exploration fleet. To help others. On the endless horizon, Thelvan watched reports come in. The human medical officer had already saved 17 lives. The human engineer had stabilized 3 ships' power systems. The human captain had sent over emergency rations without being asked. "I don't understand," Thelvan said to Rendell. "They barely know us. Why do they care so much?" Rendell had been reading human cultural files. According to their records, humans have a saying, "We help because we can." It seems they don't need a reason beyond that. Thelvan felt something crack inside his chest. All his life he'd been taught that the universe was about power and dominance, that the strong ruled and the weak served. But here were these humans technologically inferior, giving away their own supplies to save strangers. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "we have been wrong about many things." In the medical bay, Una finally took a break. Morven brought her a drink of water and sat beside her. "You saved 63 lives today. My staff wants to know how you work so fast." "Practice," Una said with a tired smile. "And I had good teachers." "Why do you do this?" Morven asked. "We are not your people." Una looked at him with genuine confusion. "You're hurt. That's enough. Where I come from, we help people who need it. That's all." Morvan felt tears in his old eyes. "We thought humans were primitive, but perhaps you are advanced in ways we never measured." Far away in human space, the relief convoy was assembling. 23 cargo ships loaded with supplies, 5 hospital ships with full medical teams, 12 support vessels with engineering crews, the largest humanitarian mission Earth had ever sent to another species. Commander Deoxu stood on the bridge of the lead ship and reviewed the mission orders. 3 days to reach them. 3 days to save 50,000 lives. All ships prepare for maximum speed. We're not letting anyone die out there. The convoy launched, racing through space toward the stranded fleet. Behind them, Earth watched and waited. The news spread quickly. Humanity was going to save the Velthari, because that's what humans did. 3 days after the Caisse d'Ajon arrived, space itself seemed to tear open as 40 human ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. The massive relief convoy spread out in a precise formation, each vessel loaded with supplies and personnel ready to help. On the bridge of the endless horizon, alarm sounded again. The sensor officer's voice cracked with disbelief. "Commander, multiple contacts. 40 ships just appeared." Thelvan rushed to the view screen. His eyes widened as he saw the fleet. Cargo ships the size of buildings, hospital vessels with bright medical insignias, support craft bristling with equipment. 40 ships in 3 days? Rendell checked the sensor data. All human vessels. They've brought everything: food, medicine, power generators, spare parts, and over 2,000 personnel. Thelvan couldn't speak. He'd asked for help, and humanity had sent an entire fleet. The scale of the response overwhelmed him. "Why so many?" Captain G1's face appeared on the communication screen. "Commander Thelvan, meet Fleet Coordinator Deoxu. He's in charge of the relief operation." Another human face appeared, older and weathered. Deoxu smiled warmly. "Commander, we're here to help. My teams are ready to board your ships and begin work immediately. With your permission, of course." "Permission granted," Thelvan said, still shocked. "What do you need from us?" "Just point us to where we're needed most," Deoxu replied. "We'll handle the rest." Within an hour, the operation began in full force. Human cargo ships docked with Velthari vessels, transferring supplies. Hospital ships opened their airlocks, inviting the injured to come aboard for treatment. Engineering teams spread throughout the fleet, carrying equipment and tools. On the colony ship New Dawn, Supply Officer Haiyun supervised the delivery of food synthesizers. Velthari families watched in amazement as humans carried in the heavy equipment, working together with practiced efficiency. Children peeked around their parents' legs, curious about these strange aliens who smiled so easily. Haiyun knelt down to greet a young Velthari child. "Hi there, are you hungry?" The child nodded shyly. "Well, let's get this synthesizer working and you can have all the food you want." Haiyun stood and called to her team. "All right, people. These folks need to eat. Let's move." The human crew worked. Through the day and night, installing equipment and showing Velthari crew how to operate it. When the first synthesizer produced a meal, the Velthari families cried with relief. Parents hugged their children. The elderly thanked the humans in broken mathematical language. Heyoon simply smiled and moved to the next ship. There were many more people to feed. On the medical frigate Healing Light, Dr. Soman led a team of 20 human doctors. They brought portable medical equipment, synthesized medicines, and most importantly, fresh medical supplies. Morven met them at the airlock, his old face showing exhaustion and hope. "Dr. Soman, thank you for coming," he said. "No thanks needed," Soman replied. "Just show us where you need us." What followed was the most intense medical operation Morvan had ever witnessed. Human doctors moved through the medical bays with purpose and compassion. They treated patients, taught Velthari doctors new techniques, and never stopped working. Soman herself performed 17 surgeries in the first day, saving lives that would have been lost. Between operations, Soman sat with Velthari patients and talked to them. She learned their names, asked about their families, and made them laugh despite their pain. Morvan realized this was what made humans different. They didn't just heal bodies, they healed spirits too. In the engineering sections of various ships, Supervisor Changmin organized teams of human technicians. They spread throughout the fleet, working alongside Velthari engineers. Changmin himself went to the endless horizon to work on the main quantum drive. Kesreem greeted him eagerly. Over the past 3 days, the young Velthari engineer had become friends with Hyun. Now he was excited to meet more humans. "Supervisor Changmin, the quantum cores are severely damaged. We've stabilized them, but they won't jump." Changmin studied the massive drives with a practiced eye. "Impressive technology, way beyond what we have." He pulled out his scanner. "But let's see what we can do to help." Chief Engineer Vexnor of the Velthari watched skeptically. "Human technology is primitive compared to ours. What can you possibly do?" Changmin smiled. "You're right. We can't build quantum drives. But we're really good at fixing broken things." He pointed to a damaged power coupling. "See that? If we bypass that section and reroute through here, we can restore partial power to the drive core." Vexnor studied the suggestion. It was crude, but it might work. "How did you see that so quickly?" "Years of fixing stuff that wasn't supposed to break," Changmin replied with a laugh. "On human ships, we're always improvising." Vexnor found himself working alongside Changmin, and to his surprise, he enjoyed it. The human had fresh perspectives on problems. He wasn't constrained by proper procedures or standard methods. He just found solutions. Throughout the fleet, similar scenes played out. Human and Velthari crew members worked together, learning from each other. Language barriers fell away as they developed shorthand communications. Friendships formed over shared tasks. Young Velthari pilot Drenka met human cargo pilot Taehyun when their ships docked. Both were assigned to help transport supplies between vessels. During a break, they found themselves sitting in the same cargo bay eating rations. "Your ship is so different from ours," Drenka said, examining the human cargo vessel through the viewport. "Yeah, our designs are simpler," Taehyun admitted, "but they work." "How did your species mobilize so quickly? 40 ships in 3 days?" Taehyun shrugged. "When the call went out that people needed help, everyone volunteered. They had to turn away ships because too many wanted to come." Drenka stared at him. "Turn away ships? People wanted to risk their lives for strangers?" "Of course," Taehyun said, as if it was obvious. "Someone needed help." They talked for hours, sharing stories about their worlds. Drenka described the military academies of the Velthari, the honor and tradition. Taehyun told her about Earth's oceans, mountains, and the millions of different cultures that somehow lived together. "Your world sounds chaotic," Drenka said. "It is," Taehyun laughed. "But it's beautiful too. Maybe you can visit someday." "I'd like that," Drenka replied, surprised to find she meant it. In the Central Coordination Center aboard Deoksu's command ship, officers tracked the progress of the relief operation. Every ship was accounted for. Every supply delivery logged. Every patient treated recorded. The operation ran with military precision, but driven by humanitarian purpose. Deoksu received reports with satisfaction. Life support restored on 31 vessels. Medical emergencies reduced by 80%. Food supplies distributed to all ships. He looked at his staff. "We're winning, people. Keep it up." But there was still one major problem. The quantum drives remained broken. Hyun and Changmin worked together to analyze the damage, bringing in Kasrim and Vexnor for their expertise. After days of study, they gathered for a meeting aboard the Daejeon. The gravitational anomaly didn't just damage the drives, Hyun explained, showing diagrams on a screen. It fundamentally destabilized the quantum matrices. Even if we had replacement parts, which we don't, it wouldn't help. The drives need to be completely rebuilt. How long would that take? Thelvan asked. He'd come personally to hear the assessment. Vexnor answered grimly. Months, perhaps a year, and it would require resources we don't have here. The room fell silent. They'd saved the fleet from immediate death, but the Velthari were still stranded. Changmin spoke up. What if we don't? Rebuild them? What if we stabilize them with something else? Like what? Vexnor asked. Our drives. Human faster-than-light drives work on different principles. They're not as advanced, but they're stable. If we could somehow combine them with your quantum cores. That's impossible, Vexnor said flatly. Our technologies are completely incompatible. Maybe, Hyun said, getting excited. But what if we're not trying to merge them? What if we use our drives as stabilizers, like a crutch for a broken leg? Kazarim leaned forward, understanding dawning. Use human drive fields to contain the quantum instability while we slowly restore core functions. Exactly, Changmin pointed at him. It wouldn't be fast and it wouldn't be pretty, but it might work. Thelvan looked between the human and Velthari engineers. What would this require? Hyun and Changmin exchanged glances. Then Hyun spoke carefully. We'd need to remove the FTL drives from most of our ships. Install them throughout your fleet. It would leave our ships stranded here until replacement parts arrived from Earth. How long? Thelvan asked. Weeks, Changmin admitted. Maybe a month. Thelvan stood up. No, I cannot ask you to strand yourselves to save us. Jiwon, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Commander, with respect, you're not asking. We're offering. Captain Jiwon, you don't understand what you're suggesting. Your crews would be stuck here. We understand perfectly, Deoxu said. And we're going to do it anyway. Your people need to get home. We'll wait. Thelvan felt his eyes burning. His pride, his prejudices, everything he'd believed about humanity crumbled. Why? Why would you sacrifice so much for us? Jiwon smiled. Because you need help. That's all the reason we need. The human crews voted within an hour. Every single person agreed to give up their ships faster than light drives. Not one voice of dissent, not one complaint. They would strand themselves in empty space to save the Velthari fleet. When Deoxu announced the vote results to Thelvan, the Velthari commander had to sit down. His legs wouldn't hold him anymore. Rendal stood beside him, her own eyes wet with tears she couldn't explain. Their entire understanding of the universe had changed in less than a week. I don't know what to say, Thelvan whispered. Say you'll let us help, Deoxu replied gently. That's all we need. The work began immediately. Human engineering teams removed the FTL drives from their own ships, handling the complex technology with care. Each drive was precious, representing the only way their ships could return home quickly. But they uninstalled them without hesitation, loading them onto transport shuttles bound for Velthari vessels. Changmin and Vexnor worked together to design the installation process. The Velthari chief engineer had stopped questioning human capability. Over the past week, he'd watched these supposedly primitive people solve problem after problem with creativity and determination. Now he trusted them completely. The quantum cores will fight the human drive fields at first, Vexnor explained to a mixed team of human and Velthari engineers. The technologies really aren't compatible, but if we can contain the initial instability, the systems should reach equilibrium. Hyun added, we'll need to monitor everything closely. Temperature, energy fluctuations, quantum decay rates. If something goes wrong, we'll have maybe 30 seconds to shut everything down. Kasrim looked worried. 30 seconds? That's not much time. Then we'll have to be fast, Changmin said with confidence. Come on, let's make history. The first test installation took place on a Velthari frigate, one of the smaller ships. Human and Velthari engineers worked side by side. connecting the human FTL drive to the alien quantum core. Sensors covered every surface, ready to detect the slightest problem. Safety teams stood by with emergency shutdown controls. In the control room, Jiwon stood with Thelvan and Deoksu, watching through the viewport. The engineering bay looked like organized chaos, with crew members from 2 different species moving in synchronized patterns. Ready to activate. Hyun's voice came through the communication system. All safeties confirmed, Vexnor added. Do it, Changmin ordered. The human drive powered on. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the quantum core began to glow, its exotic energies swirling in patterns that hurt to look at. The entire ship shuddered. Alarms blared. Engineers scrambled to adjust power flows. It's fighting, Kasreem shouted. The quantum matrix is rejecting the drive field. Hold steady, Changmin called back. Let it stabilize. The shaking grew worse. Lights flickered. Some engineers backed away, ready to evacuate. But Hyun and Vexnor stood their ground, hands flying over controls, making adjustments in real time. Then, slowly, the shaking decreased. The glow from the quantum core softened. The energies began to flow in harmony instead of conflict. The alarm stopped. Energy levels stable, Vexnor reported, his voice filled with amazement. Quantum decay halted. Temperature nominal. The drive is holding, Hyun added, checking his instruments. I think it worked. The control room erupted in cheers. Humans and Velthari hugged each other, celebrating together. Jiwon felt tears on her face and didn't bother wiping them away. Beside her, Thelvan covered his face with his hands, overwhelmed. 1 down, Deoksu said with a huge smile. 36 to go. Over the next 10 days, the teams repeated the process throughout the fleet. Each installation taught them something new. They refined their techniques, shortened the installation time, and reduced the danger. Human and Velthari engineers became a seamless unit, anticipating each other's needs, covering each other's weaknesses. Changmin and Vexnor developed a friendship that surprised them both. The old Velthari engineer had spent decades believing that his species stood alone at the peak of civilization. Now he worked alongside humans half his age who taught him things he'd never imagined. His pride didn't sting anymore. Instead, he felt excitement at learning something new. You humans are strange, Vexnor said one evening as they took a break. You give away technology that took you decades to develop. You risk everything for people you barely know. Why? Changmin thought about it. I guess because we know what it's like to be alone. Humanity spent thousands of years thinking we were the only intelligent life in the universe. It made us feel isolated. Now that we know there are others out there, we want to connect. We want to help. Maybe it's because we remember that loneliness. Your species is either very wise or very foolish, Vexnor said. Probably both, Changmin laughed. But we try our best. Meanwhile, throughout the fleet, personal connections deepened. Dr. Soman spent her evenings talking with Morvan about medicine and philosophy. The old Velthari doctor had practiced medicine for 60 years, but he'd never met anyone who cared about patients the way humans did. You treat them like family, Morvan observed. Every patient, even those you just met. Because they are family, Soman replied. Maybe not by blood, but by shared existence. We're all just trying to survive in a difficult universe. That makes us connected. Morvan had published medical papers across the Velthari Empire. He'd been honored by his people for his skill. But sitting with this human doctor, he realized he'd been missing something fundamental. Medicine wasn't just about healing bodies. It was about recognizing the value in every life. Drenka and Taehyun met daily now, sharing meals and stories. The young Velthari pilot had been taught that military honor and strength defined worth. But Taehyun showed her a different way of thinking. He talked about his family back on Earth, about his little sister who wanted to be a teacher, about his parents who ran a restaurant. You're a pilot, Drenka said one day. You could be a warrior. Why fly cargo ships? Because cargo ships feed people, Taehyun explained. They move medicine and supplies to places that need them. That's important too, maybe even more important than fighting. We are taught that warriors are the highest calling, Drenka said slowly. Every calling is high if you do it well and help others, Taehyun replied. My mom cooks food. My dad welcomes guests. Are they less important than soldiers? I don't think so. Drenka thought about this for days. Her entire culture valued military service above all else. But watching humans work, she saw people who valued every contribution. The cargo pilots were just as respected as the ship captains. The supply officers were just as honored as the doctors. Everyone mattered. Not all Velthari accepted this easily. Some military officers protested accepting so much help from an inferior species. A group of them approached Thelvan, demanding that he refuse further human assistance. "We are Velthari," one officer declared. "We do not take charity from lesser beings. It shames us." Thelvan looked at each of them. His voice was cold. "Lesser beings? These lesser beings sacrifice their own ships to save ours. They work day and night without complaint. They treat our wounded and feed our children. If this is what lesser beings do, then perhaps we need to redefine greatness." "But Commander—" "Enough!" Thelvan's voice cracked like thunder. "I have been a fool. We have all been fools. We measured worth by military power and technology, but humans measure it by compassion and sacrifice. Tell me, which measurement saved 50,000 Velthari lives? It wasn't our weapons or our quantum drives. It was human kindness." The officers left in silence. Word of Thelvan's speech spread throughout the fleet. Some Velthari still struggled with their prejudices, but many began to see humans differently. They saw people who kept their promises, who worked until exhaustion, who gave without expecting anything in return. On the 15th day after the relief convoy arrived, the last Velthari ship received its hybrid drive system. 37 vessels now carried a combination of Velthari quantum cores and human FTL drives, a fusion of technologies that neither species could have achieved alone. The test came immediately. One ship powered up its new hybrid drive carefully, monitored by every sensor available. The quantum core activated smoothly, contained and stabilized by the human drive field. The ship lifted gently from its position and accelerated. Then, in a flash of light, it jumped. 10 seconds later, it reappeared exactly where the calculations predicted. Perfect jump. Perfect return. The celebration that followed echoed through both fleets. Velthari and humans embraced, cried, and laughed together. They'd done the impossible. They'd saved the fleet. That night, Thelvan invited all the human senior officers to his ship for a formal dinner. Jiwan, Deoksu, Changmin, Somin, and others arrived to find a feast prepared. Velthari families attended, wanting to thank the humans personally. Thelvan stood and raised a glass. "To humanity," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You came when we called. You gave when we had nothing to offer in return. You taught us that civilization isn't measured by power, but by compassion. You saved us not just from death, but from our own arrogance. We are forever in your debt." Jiwan stood and raised her own glass. "No debt, no obligation. We helped because you needed it. That's what neighbors do, and we hope that someday all species in the galaxy can be neighbors." They drank together. 3 weeks after the relief convoy arrived, the replacement FTL drives reached the human fleet from Earth. The human ships could finally go home, but saying goodbye proved harder than anyone expected. On the colony ship New Dawn, Velthari families gathered to thank Heun and her supply team. Children pressed drawings into the humans' hands showing their families and the humans who had helped them. One small Velthari girl hugged Heun's leg and wouldn't let go. "Thank you for the food," the child's mother said in halting mathematical language. "My daughter was so hungry." "You saved her?" Heun knelt down and smiled at the little girl. "You take care of your mom, okay?" She gently unwrapped the small arms from her leg and stood, wiping her eyes. "We have to go now." As the supply team left, Velthari families lined the corridors, touching the humans' hands as they passed. No words were needed. The gratitude in their eyes said everything. In the medical frigate Healing Light, Dr. Sumin completed her final rounds. She'd spent 3 weeks treating patients, teaching techniques, and sharing knowledge. Morvan walked beside her, his old heart heavy with the coming departure. "I have learned more from you in 3 weeks than in my last 10 years of practice," Morvan said quietly. "You showed me that medicine is about caring for the whole person, not just fixing the body." Sumin took his hands. "You're an excellent doctor, Morvan. You always were. You just needed to remember why you started." She pressed a data chip into his palm. "This contains human medical research from the past century. Maybe something in here will help your people." "This knowledge is priceless," Morvan protested. "We cannot—" "Knowledge should be shared," Somin interrupted gently. "Use it well. Save lives. That's payment enough." Morvan pulled her into an embrace, something Velthari rarely did. "You have changed me. Thank you." In the engineering sections, Changmin and Vexnor reviewed the hybrid drive specifications one last time. They'd written a complete manual together, combining their knowledge so future engineers could maintain and improve the systems. This manual represents something unprecedented, Vexnor said, running his hand over the data tablet. Veltharian human knowledge merged into something new. Something better than either of us could create alone. Send me updates, Changmin said. I want to know how the drives perform over time. Maybe we can make them even better. I will. Vexnor clasped Changmin's shoulder in the Velthari gesture of respect. You taught this old engineer that he still had much to learn. I won't forget that. Kasrim stood nearby with Hyun, both young engineers looking sad. They'd become close friends over the past weeks, staying up late discussing technology and dreaming about future innovations. I'm going to miss working with you, Kasrim admitted. Human engineers think differently. It's refreshing. We'll stay in touch, Hyun promised. And maybe someday I'll visit Velthari space. You can show me how your quantum drives really work. I'd like that, Kasrim replied with a smile. In a cargo bay, Drenka and Taehyun sat together one last time. Their friendship had grown deeper than either expected. They'd shared countless conversations about life, dreams, and the nature of honor. I'm going to request a transfer to the diplomatic corps, Drenka said suddenly. My whole life I wanted to be a warrior. But you showed me there are other ways to serve. Other ways to be honorable. Taehyun looked surprised. Because of me? Because of all of you, Drenka corrected. Humans showed me that strength comes in many forms. The strength to help others. The strength to sacrifice for strangers. The strength to be kind when it would be easier to be hard. She pulled out a small object and handed it to him. This is a Velthari flight token. It means safe travels. Keep it. Taehyun took the token, turning it over in his hands. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small photograph. This is my family. Back on Earth, I want you to have it. So you remember that every person, human or Velthari, has people who love them. That makes everyone worth protecting. Drenka held the photograph like it was made of glass. In the image, Taehyun stood with his parents and sister, all of them smiling. I will treasure this. And I will see you again, Taehyun. That's not goodbye. It's until next time. Until next time, Taehyun agreed, his voice breaking. On the bridge of the endless horizon, Commander Thelvan prepared for his fleet's departure. Captain Jiwon stood beside him, having come aboard for the final farewell. They looked out at the stars together, two commanders who had become friends. When you first arrived, I almost refused your help, Thelvan confessed. My pride nearly killed my people. But you didn't refuse, Jiwon pointed out. You put your people before your pride. That takes strength. Humanity taught me a better definition of strength. Thelvan turned to face her. Captain, I have sent a message to the Velthari High Council. I recommended immediate diplomatic relations with Earth. I told them about what happened here. I told them that humans are not primitive or inferior. You are our equals, perhaps our superiors in the ways that truly matter. Jiwon smiled. We're not superior. We're just different. And that's good. The galaxy needs different perspectives. I also told them something else, Thelvan continued. I said that this incident must be taught to every Velthari child. The story of how humanity saved us will become part of our history. We will never forget what you did. We didn't do it to be remembered, Jiwon said softly. We did it because it was right. I know, Thelvan replied. That's exactly why we'll remember. The departure came all too soon. The Velthari fleet powered up their hybrid drives, ready to jump home. The human fleet floated nearby, their crews lining the viewports to wave goodbye. Thelvan stood on his bridge and made one final broadcast to both fleets. Humans of Earth, you came to us in our darkest hour. You gave us hope when we had none. You sacrificed your own safety for ours. You treated us not as strangers, but as family. We came here as a lost fleet, but we leave as your friends. May our paths cross again under better circumstances. May our peoples build a future together. May we never forget that the universe is brighter because of your compassion. He paused, emotion thick in his voice. Safe travels, friends. Until we meet again. Deoxu responded from the human command ship. Safe travels, Commander. Take care of those ships. We built them together. They're part of both our peoples now. One by one, the Velthari ships jumped away in flashes of light. Each jump was perfect, the hybrid drives working exactly as designed. The human crews cheered with each successful departure, proud of what they'd built together. When the last Velthari ship vanished, the human fleet hung alone in empty space. The silence felt strange after weeks of constant activity, but it was a peaceful silence. The silence of a job well done. Jiwan returned to her ship and made an entry in her personal log. Today we said goodbye to friends we didn't know we'd make. We came here to save lives, and we did. But we gained something too. We learned that we're not alone in the universe, that other species can become family, that the differences between us matter less than what we share. She paused, thinking about the past 3 weeks. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that humanity did something important here. We showed that advanced technology isn't what makes a civilization great. Compassion makes it great. The willingness to help others makes it great. The courage to sacrifice for strangers makes it great. If we can carry these lessons forward, maybe we can help build a better galaxy, one where species help each other instead of competing, where cooperation replaces conflict, where kindness is valued as much as strength. The Velthari called us heroes, but we're not heroes. We're just people who did what needed to be done, and I hope that when other species meet humanity, they see what the Velthari saw. Not our ships or weapons or technology, but our willingness to help, our refusal to leave someone behind, our belief that every life has worth. This is Captain Jiwan signing off. We're coming home. 1 year later, the Kepler 442 system had changed dramatically. A massive monument floated in space where the stranded fleet had once drifted. Built jointly by Velthari and human engineers, it stood as a testament to what happened there. The monument was simple but powerful. A human hand and a Velthari hand, reaching toward each other, fingers touching. Beneath it, words in both languages. Here, humanity proved that civilization is measured not by power but by compassion. The monument became a pilgrimage site. Velthari families traveled there to honor the humans who saved them. Human ships stopped there to remember why they explored space, not to conquer, but to connect. Thelvin visited regularly, now serving as the Velthari ambassador to Earth. He'd left military service to dedicate his life to building bridges between species. Beside him on these visits often stood Rendal, now a leading voice in Velthari philosophy, arguing that strength and compassion were not opposites but complements. Kasrim and Hyun published a joint research paper on hybrid drive technology that won awards from both species. They continued collaborating, pushing the boundaries of what was possible when different perspectives worked together. Dr. Somin and Morvan established an exchange program for medical personnel, creating a generation of doctors trained in both Velthari and human techniques. Medicine advanced for both species as knowledge flowed freely between them.